Hello and welcome to Easy Money with Don Anders. And I just want to say congratulations to everyone watching this. Your longevity is higher than it's ever been, statistically. You will live longer than anyone else in history, statistically. And a lot of us feel like that's a good thing, right? We're living longer. Like Matt said in a previous video, we're getting to see our grandkids grow older, maybe our great grandkids. I saw a video on YouTube or Instagram or somewhere where I think it was 5 or 6 generations, right? Because people are living so much longer. They all came out and showed 5 or 6 generations, which is great. But the problem is longevity equals extra risk. And as Matt says, it's a risk multiplier. So Matt, thank you for joining us again. If you haven't seen the previous videos we did, I'm going to go ahead and link it up above. But tell me why longevity equals more risk. To me, or to most people, they just say the longer we live, the better it is. But why does it equal more risk in their retirement?
Well, there's 3 risks that we deal with in retirement that we have to manage simultaneously. And we've talked about them in previous videos. Market risks, stocks and bonds, which go up and down throughout the course of time, and legislative or tax risk, which is the changing tax environment and or our economy, which can draw money out of us as well. Longevity is that 3rd risk. And as you said, we are living in a society in this country, the greatest country in the world, where our life expectancy is longer than it ever been in history. And it will continue to grow because of medical advances. Well, the blessing is that we'll get to do all the things. We'll get to travel longer. We'll get to see grandkids and great grandchildren and so on and so forth. I would love to see my 1-year-old grandson pitch in the major leagues, but I need to be around till I'm 80. Statistically says I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Now, that's the blessing side. The curse side is because of all that extra time, it makes for more time for us to suffer market calamities, which we haven't seen at this present day in 2021. We haven't seen a true market calamity since 2008. Well, that is twice as long. Take it from somebody who's been in this business 35 years. It's twice as long as any other occurring time. We haven't seen the pain show up. So
statistically, it's 1 out of every 5 years, correct?
Statistically, that's what it tells us. Yeah, every 5 to 7 years, we will see a market decline on the average of 37%, I believe is the exact number, 37.5.
So with that, if somebody's retired for 20 years, statistically, you're talking about 4 to 6 times they're going to see their money. If they're 100% in the stock market, they're going to see their money cut by 30 to 40%. 4 to 6 times throughout their retirement, but we haven't seen any of that in the last 13 years.
Correct. And that if we look back in the 2008 market crash, the S&P dropped 50%, and people are like, well, I'm not invested fully in the S&P. I'm retired. I've got a 60% stock and a 40% bond portfolio. Okay, well, that only went down 35%. So if you have $1 million, are you okay with it being $650,000 next year? I can't find anyone that answers yes to that.
And it went down 35%, and interest rates have done nothing but drop in the last 35 years. What happens if interest rates rise and the market drops? Because as most people don't realize, is bonds work inversely of interest rates. So if interest rates rise, the bonds are not going to be the safety vehicle that you think they are. Right.
And yes, we've been pitched for so many years as we buy bonds to offset the risk of stocks. At this present moment, the risk lies in both areas.
They're both sky high.
We're at a market environment where stocks are at an all-time high and we're at ultra low interest rates. So if the market crashes, people would say, well, bonds will go up. But if you understand the inverse relationships to bonds, and there's a podcast that I did to talk about my first entree into investing when 1977, 78, when I bought a bond and sold it 3 years later and took a discount of about 30%. Why? Because interest rates had gone up. Well, where are interest rates possibly headed from here? Not lower, higher. And interest rates go up, bonds go down, and we're going to see both be affected.
And that's a big problem that people have, is they go, well, yeah, look at this account's great. Look what it's done the last 30 years. Well, the last 30 years has nothing to do with what is going to happen the next 30 years. Yeah. And actually what financial advisors literally have to put, if they're making any kind of claims or doing illustrations, that past performance does not dictate future returns. Everyone has to put it on there. You know why? Because it is one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems in our market, in our industry, in investing, is they look at what happened in the past and they think it's always going to happen in the future. Right. You know, you take the 2008 housing crisis, right? Everyone thought that real estate's never going to crash. It never has before. Who doesn't pay their mortgage, right? And so real estate's just going to keep going up forever. What they didn't realize is it was different then, right? And it wasn't just a bunch of people buying primary residences. It was over leveraging. It was you know, the toxic bond markets that they created, all of those things. So the subprime lending, all of that. So what people need to realize is that, yes, you might be retired for 30 or 35 years, but the issue is the next 30 or 35 years will not may not, it will not look like the last 30 or 35 years.
Yeah, and we have another phenomenon right now. And again, we're talking about longevity and why it's a risk multiplier. We've got outsized expectations and unrealistic views of the market at the moment. People, if we go back to 2020 and come forward to 2021, the S&P 500, which is the benchmark for our market and how well our economy of sorts is doing, people think that that's double-digit average annual returns. Well, in fact, it's barely over 6.5% over those 20 years. The first 10 years of that were negative. So why is this longevity risk multiplier why does it multiply risk? Because more time we have, the more susceptible we are to that market risk. And we need to be slapped into a kind of a realization that, just like you said, past performance is not indicative, nor will it point forward. So more time that we have to live, more time we have for market variations. The same holds true with taxation. Every 2 to 4 years, we're going to vote to put new people into Congress, into the Senate, into the White House. They all come in with their agendas. I don't care whether you're blue or red or green or purple. You and I deal with green in our offices, and that's the money our clients have. And whether the market takes it away or legislation, inflation, taxation, deduction changes, all of those things, the more time that we have in our lives, which longevity gives us today, the blessing, the curse is it multiplies the risks of the other two dramatically.
Yeah. And what's going to happen to Social Security? I think Social Security is going to be here, but we know that it's set to run out of money in less than a decade, right? You know, what's going to happen? So they're probably going to make changes. What's going to happen with taxes? What is going to happen with inflation? So like you said, as time goes on, there's more and more risk is involved. And that gets back to having an all-weather retirement plan, like we talked about, something that's going to last, whether you live 10 years or whether you live 40 years, right? We want something that's going to last. Hoping that you don't make it till 90 so you don't run out of money is not a plan. You need to have a plan no matter what. So thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it. We're going to put all of Matt's information, his YouTube page and his website down below if you want to check him out. I appreciate the feedback and the time, and we will talk soon.
Thanks.